Are Indian classical ragas just scales? My name is Mams, and this is unscripted, unfiltered, untuned. So, what even is a raga? Now, there are different ways to describe it. Now, I think the biggest problem that this question poses is that everyone is expecting a one sentence answer, and sometimes some things in life are difficult to put it in one sentence, and like and also explain it. I mean, I could definitely put it in one sentence, but that would probably not help any musician understand what it is. Now, I'm not saying I'm any expert on Indian classical music, but I've played with it for a few years and I constantly keep revisiting it and use it in my own music. So let me give you what is my perspective on what a raga is. Is it a scale? Now, a lot of explanations start with the answer no, it is not a scale. And I would say the opposite. I would say yes, it is a scale, but I would say it's a scale on steroids. That's the funny phrase I like to use every time. It is definitely a scale, but there are other things as well. There are other things included in it. Let me just give you some examples. For example, some of these scales have a different upward and downward movement. For example, the rag Mia. So it uses both the sevenths, the knees. So while going up, you have to use a natural or a shuddha knee, a natural seventh. But while coming down, you have to use a flat seventh. This is one very tiny example. I think we've also heard it being said for the melodic minor in classical music, or even the harmonic minor, which comes down as a natural minor. But that's just a small example, and there are examples which are much more complicated than that. I think it also includes phrases. So, like, there are distinct phrases that every raga has, and there might be some scale which have the same. Some ragas which have the same scale. Coming back to phrases, like let's say Yaman. So that would be Yaman. It uses the Lydian mode, the Lydian scale. But there are other ragas which also use the Lydian mode. Mm, for example, Bihag. So as you can see, has both the fourths, both the mas, and including the sharp ma. So you could argue this has Lydian in it, but it also has the Ionian in it. So, and there are some which actually do have the exact same set of notes, but are still different ragas. Can I think of something from the top of my head? No, not now, not right now. But I think that gets there when we get much more deeper into ragas. But there are definitely scales where like they are the exact same set of notes, but then the way you play it, the phrases you use in it, make them sound different, and they become different ragas. Now, the bigger confusion that happens with it is that we have to understand we are talking about music that has evolved over centuries, probably from the 1300s to like it is still evolving up till today. So we're talking about like some 700 or 800 years over here, and also geographically, like India is a pretty big landmass. So something that happens in, let's say, the northern part somewhere like Delhi, and then something that happens towards the eastern part like Calcutta, or something that happens in Bombay, something that happens somewhere, and we're talking about a time when internet was not there. So like there are gonna be variations and contradictions in these things. So we have gharanas, which are basically like schools, and what I mean by schools is like how in a teacher teaches their disciple, and then that disciple teaches another disciple, and this whole lineage is called a gharana. Like we're not talking about like biological lineage, but we're talking about the educational lineage, the musical educational lineage. But one gharana may have a different set of rules for like may have a different may have a raga which is different from another gharana using the same raga, and there might be minor variations in these ragas, and that is one big confusion. Now another big confusion is the presence of Carnatic music. Now when we say Indian classical music, like there are two big divisions of it, which is the Hindustani, the northern Indian classical and music, and the southern Indian classical music. These are almost worlds apart, and their playing style is very different. Like whereas North Indian classical, it was influenced more by Middle Eastern music. When the Mughals came and conquered India, like the music from there had influenced Indian music of that, and that is the style that I trained it. Now, Southern Indian Carnatic music sounds very different. So, just to give you a brief idea, if you can imagine Indian classical music in your head, and you hear that it's very relaxing, very droned out, very peaceful, very like long, like slow maybe even, and very meditative, that is probably North Indian classical music. But then if you hear a lot more like it's very shreddy, it's very like technical, lots of like complex time signatures, like, and I mean really complex time signatures. I'm not talking 7/4, like we're talking like 23/4 or something like that, and lots of rhythmic interplay. That's probably Carnatic music. That's a very like I'm just putting it out in very layman terms, but like of course there are a lot more nuances in this. So the confusion, we're coming back to ragas, is that, and this is, I think this is a really big confusion actually, like they have the same name for completely different ragas. I'm not even talking they are similar, like they are completely like different. Like I do believe like there is something called Todi in Carnatic music, which has no similarity at all with North Indian classical. Before the previous point I was making with Gharanas is like, okay, they have minor differences in between the Gharanas, but here we're talking like they're a completely different scale altogether, and the scale which is the Todi in in Hindustani classical music will be called completely something else in Carnatic music. So that is another big confusion that happens with raga music, with raga. So I wanted to give some ideas of how a Western musician like me, like I'm primarily someone who plays Western music, how can we study it? Now I think the best approach is to go one at a time. Take one particular raga, learn the scales, and obviously you're not playing pure Indian classical music, so you don't have to always stick to all the rules. But listening is very important. Something that I like to do is like I just like to open a track, and then as you know, like Indian classical music is 90% improvised. So just play along with that. Just try copying. Like I get some phrases, I don't get some phrases, and I do it on any instrument, usually a guitar or a fretless guitar, and just try and play along with it. Like you will subconsciously pick up a lot of these things, and then take a raga, like study it as much as possible, improvise on it, maybe learn a few compositions. I don't think learning compositions helps a lot, because like unless you want to play the compositions, but if you are more interested in the improvisation, I don't see how much learning compositions would help. Maybe it would help you to get started, because like you're in a beat, you're in a rhythm, that way it could help. But improvisation is really where the juice is at. And these are my ideas. Like maybe tell me in the comments like if you have some more specific questions. And also another, there are also, I would say there are two approaches you could take, and both has its advantages and disadvantages. One is to pick ragas that are similar to stuff that happens in Western classical music. Let's say you know the major scale, you know the natural minor scale. Like if you know the major scale, maybe take something like Bilawal or Allahiya Bilawal or Ampupali, which I believe is the pentatonic major scale, or take something like the Asawadi or Jaunpuri, which is the minor scale, like, or take something which is similar, which you already know in Western music, like Yaman, which is Lydian. But the now the advantage to this is like you can easily fit it in the other stuff that you play. You can easily put in licks from these these ragas that you learn into your other styles of playing. However, the other approach that I would suggest, and I think this is a much more long term approach, is actually go for ragas that are not similar, because then you learn something that is completely new. Like if you learn something like Puriya Dhanashri or Tori or Marwa, these, or Bhairav, Ahir Bhairav, these aren't things which you find very frequently in Western music, and that will give you a very distinct sound. It'll sound very different than what you usually play. And I think that in the long run would actually be more satisfying. So that is my suggestion. Maybe I'll play some music to end the video. Hello, editing stage Mams here. So what I did for this particular video is the intro I recorded some Alap in Rag Tori, and for the outro I wanted to use this thing, this Novation Launchpad. Since I got it, I've not been able to use it so much because I'm so busy editing videos and planning videos and stuff, but I decided to use it for this, and I decided to use the sequencer of this. And I'm actually not very good at using sequencers. I don't very frequently use sequencers, so I used this, and I didn't really understand how to make a video with sequencers. Like, so I just decided to show myself making the sequence itself. So that is the outro video. There's a whole big section where I'm making the sequence and making mistakes, and the whole thing I left it in because I thought it looked interesting. So that is the outro track, over which I again played some rag Todi on the sitar, improvised, and the backing track which I made will be available on my Patreon probably 3 days after this video is out. If you go over to the link in my description, you will be able to find lots of backing tracks, lots of demo recordings, lots of phone recordings, and there's also a sample pack which is called, what is it called? It is called Synthetic India. So you can get access to that by signing up for my Patreon. For just $10 a month, you get access to everything. And if you just want to support, there's also a $5 tier for which you can get your names at the end of my videos, at this section of the video, as well as the Synthetic India sample pack. And there's gonna be one more sample pack. The sitar sample pack is, I'm gonna transfer it over to my Patreon now. And in the background, I'm also working on sitar sample pack volume 2. I don't know how long it will take, but I'm working on it. So please do go and support me on Patreon. Over to the outro music.